Good morning, Ignite family. I'd like to introduce a friend and sister in the faith. Her story began in central India when she was born to a family whose dream for a better life could not be realized in their home country. With no freedom and no opportunity, her family left their ancestral home when she was just 7 months old. She met her husband, Rick, who's here with her today, while attending Dartmouth College. They make their home in Manchester, Vermont. And she is a proud American citizen, and she is running for the office of Lieutenant Governor of Vermont. Please welcome Meg Hansen.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for the lovely introduction. Thank you to Pastor Todd, Pastor Zio, for inviting us. My husband, Rick, and I are really happy, very happy to be with all of you, the Ignite Church family, this morning. So I would just want to share just a little bit about my relationship with God. And as Rachel said, I was born in India. I left when I was 7 months. In my life, I look at three most important blessings: God, my husband Rick, and this nation. These are what I rely on, what I love, and to whom I'm committed. I say God number one because I don't believe that anything in my life is possible without His guidance and His provisions. And I learned to rely and lean on God when I was very young. When I was just about 5 years old, my mother was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor. And that was a battle that she fought for many years, but she lost. And during that very difficult time, my brother and myself, we went to live with my maternal grandparents. And my maternal grandmother, she was really important in laying the spiritual foundation of my life. I want to thank the worship team because I felt really overcome with emotion. I know that both my maternal grandparents, my mother and Rick's father, are here with us in spirit. I feel it. So when my brother and I were living with my grandparents, every night my grandmother would tell us a story before bed. And her stories were always about the great heroes of our faith. And so this year, as we've been working on our campaign, these are the stories that have stayed with me. So this I often think about Nehemiah and his God-given dream to rebuild the walls of Jerusalem. And I'd just like to say a few words about that today. So when Nehemiah began his journey, he didn't have the money, he didn't have the resources, he didn't have the manpower, he had nothing. All he had was the conviction in his spirit. And I relate very closely to that. Then when he got to the city, he saw the city was in ruins, the gates were burned, and we wouldn't fault someone to see that and feel discouraged at the enormity of the task in front of him. But Nehemiah was not discouraged. He remained determined with persistence and tenacity. And then all kinds of critics came against him. They mocked him, they scorned him, they accused him of rebellion. The city leaders then mounted an opposition against him. So he was getting hit from all sides. And I know that we're all familiar with this kind of experience in our own lives, in our own ways. And my belief is that this is inevitable, and it happens when we have a vision for a new chapter, a new beginning, a new start, a vision that our critics don't share, but that they fear may be true. That's because they're wedded to the present, and they're afraid of change that is important, that we all need. And so they attack us. But when I have faced hostility and ridicule running as a Republican, as a woman of faith in very deep blue Vermont, I've told myself that I should remind myself of Nehemiah's story and emulate his first instinct, which was to turn to God, to pray and to ask for guidance and provisions to face the opposition in front of him. So Nehemiah knew, and he said that the gracious hand of God was on his life and that God's favor dwarfs all obstacles. So even though the odds were against him, he remained undeterred. He said, all right, well, we're going to do this because this is God's work. And he invited the people to come together to unite, and he inspired in them a passion for restoration and renewal. And he said, the God of heaven will make us prosper, and we, his servants, will arise and build. And the people came together, and they built the wall, which should have taken 1 to 2 years. They finished it in record time of 52 days. They say that valiant works grow out of great faith. So this year, I've really been grappling with what does it mean to have great faith. And I think what it means is to have great faith is to magnify God and not the obstacles before us. To have great faith is to know that we can fight because of the God who fights for us. Nehemiah wasn't called to just rebuild a physical wall. He was called to rebuild the people of God in the city of Jerusalem. And that was his calling, that was his God's work. And I have learned this year that God's work is not dependent on human abilities, and it is not vulnerable to human opposition. My prayer today for all of us is that we too share Nehemiah's confidence in God, that Nehemiah's confidence in God becomes our confidence in God, so that we too may in our lives arise and build. Thank you.